Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Extra Practice Module 32. Get started here. Check your understanding number one. Suppose the economy is in a long run equilibrium. What's the long run effect of an aggregate price level on the aggregate price level of a 5% increase in the money supply? And if you were kind of following this of this kind of story that we've been talking about, the long run effect would be to increase the price level by 5%. That basically, if there's 5% more money out there and everything else is the same, you should see a 5% increase in price levels. That's kind of the idea of the quantity theory of money and some other things that we'll talk about. But that's the whole notion of long run money neutrality. The second question says, again, supposing the economy begins in equilibrium, what's the long run effect on the interest rate of a 5% increase in the money supply? Explain. So this one is maybe a little bit different, but the long run effect here is no change. And that's because, right, and it wants us to explain here, and actually I was supposed to explain here, because of basically the quantity theory, which again is more explored in lecture 9.3 or 9.3, a little bit more there about why that is. But this one we can really articulate pretty clearly, right? Because if the supply of money goes up, we can say, therefore, initially the interest rate will go down. Like, we know that to be the case. And that causes aggregate demand to go up, which causes price levels to go up, right? So if you want, like, this is kind of the explanation here about price levels as well. But then you can say, therefore, the demand for money rises. And that causes the interest rate to go right back up to where it started again. And so this is kind of the idea of long run money neutrality in terms of the interest rate, but it also is neutral in terms of output, right? So even though with this aggregate demand part going up, we got more output, that's in the short run. In the long run, right, when this interest rate comes back up again, what's going to happen to aggregate demand? It's going to go right back down again, and it'll equilibrate back to where it was. So output and interest rates are not affected by changes in the money supply in the long run, but just price levels, right? Because we're still left with higher prices. Then let's take a look at these multiple choice questions. Question number one says, in the long run, changes in the quantity of money affect which of the following? Well, I just said they don't affect output, they don't affect interest rates, but they do affect price levels. So 3 only, that's C. Number 2 says an increase in the money supply will lead to which of the following in the short run? So in the short run, right, we get some changes. It pushes the interest rate down, makes aggregate demand go up, makes price levels go up. And so higher interest rates, no, it's not going to cause interest rates to go up. It'll cause them to go down. Decreased investment spending. Well, no, again, it should cause it to go up. Decreased consumer spending. No, it does cause increased aggregate demand, though. Basically the same link chain that we just talked about up here. So D for number 2. Number 3 says a 10% decrease in the money supply will change the aggregate, let me move this out of the way, will change the aggregate price level in the long run by 10%, right? That's the idea that we kind of actually observe. There's a proportional change here. And so we would expect it to be a 10% change, C. Again, that's in the long run. Number 4, money neutrality means that in the long run, changes in the money supply, well, they can happen. They do have an effect, but they just don't change output. And they in that sense, let's see, have no real effect on the economy, have no effect on the economy. Oh, this is an interesting question. Oh, I think I see what they're getting at here. So they don't increase real GDP, right? We know that that's not true. We know that they don't change real interest rates. We know that one's not true. I think what they're getting at is that they don't have a real effect on the economy. And when they're saying this here, what they're saying is it's like a real effect in terms of output. I don't really care for how this question's phrased, though. So I'm gonna cross that one out and say C is the right answer, but we'll take that one out of the set. Number 5, a graph of percentage increases in the money supply and average annual increases in price level provides evidence that they're related, right? So let's see what we have here. Changes in the two variables are exactly equal. I mean, they're pretty close, actually, so that could be the right answer. Money supply and aggregate price level are unrelated. That's wrong. Money neutrality holds only in what? No, that's not. Money policy is ineffective. No, I don't think so. I don't think it proves that it's ineffective because it is effective. It's just it produces the price level effect. Money is neutral in the long run. Boy, this is another one where I don't really like the phrasing this question. I think that they want us to say E, money is neutral in the long run. But again, I'm not a big fan of this question, so I'm going to take that one out of our set as well. All right, let's take a look at free response number 2. Scroll down. Draw a correctly labeled graph of ADAS, show the economy in equilibrium. That's not too bad. That's old news. We could do that. LRAS, aggregate demand, and SRAS. Bada bing, bada boom. B, on your graph, show what happens in the short run if the central bank makes the money supply bigger to pay off a government deficit. Ooh, now I don't really like that. To make the money supply, all right, so let's say they push if they're paying off the deficit, that I'm wondering if they want us to do something different there. That's quirky. You won't see like that's up on the test. They just would say on the test they make the money supply bigger. So if they make the money supply bigger, we would expect the aggregate demand curve to increase because the interest rate is going to get pushed down. And so we go from like point A to point B. And then it says part C, show what happens in the long run. Well, in the long run, we know SRAS will shift back and will come back to here. And so we can kind of explain and say A to B because the supply of money increased and therefore interest rates went down. And that therefore boosts aggregate demand, right? We know that's true. B to C, our explanation for that, because it wants us to explain both of these, would be that PL increased, and when we went from A to B, it went up. And so we'd say, therefore, input costs went up, so therefore SRAS decreased. Right? So that's kind of the explanation of the self-correcting aspect. All right, so hopefully this helped you. I'll see you next time.